Here's what happened. Your family, friends, clients, people that work with you ask you for a favor, ask if you can help out with this new opportunity. And you have this urge that comes up where you really don't want to do it, but you then inevitably say yes. And then over time, it can drain you and exhaust you and take away from the time you want to focus on the things that really matter for you, for what you want in building this business and for your own quality of life. And so what I want to get into today is sharing with you, why do you keep saying yes to things that drain you? Understanding the process that's going on within your body, how it relates to burnout, and what can happen if you don't interrupt this pattern and change the pattern. So this is Make Burnout Extinct. I'm Robert David Weeks. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I know you could be doing a bunch of different stuff, a lot of distractions. Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. And if you haven't done it yet, you can subscribe and follow the show for the latest episodes. Before getting into it, let's take a deep breath in through the nose, and then we're going to release it out through the mouth, because I know you've had a lot of shit and challenges you've been dealing with in building the business. And then you got a lot afterwards. And this is going to be the time for you to give yourself some space for reflection and for making changes. So here we go. Deep inhale through the nose. And release it out through the mouth. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's nice. Okay. 2 commitments for you before jumping in. First commitment is to continue to grow this show. It's been incredible to see the growth that's happened in the now over 9 months since the launch of the show. And it wouldn't be possible without your support. The second commitment I have for you is to be honest with you. Leading up to my burnout after this social media conference I organized where 500 people came together back in 2018, I hit my burnout. And leading up to that, I lied so much along the way. And it created this intense amount of pressure in my body and tension in my body that I now have a very deep understanding. And it ties into what we're going to be talking about today with why you keep saying yes and then how that can be draining for you. So what I am committed to with this show is to be honest with you. It's such a strong value of mine because I know what can happen when you do lie, when that pressure does build. It can take you for a one-way ticket to hitting burnout. And that's something I don't want for you. And so I really do believe on the importance of building a business based off of honesty that you have for yourself, for the people that you're interacting with. And nobody is perfect. And when I make the mistakes, when you make the mistake, give yourself that grace and then focus on changing what has to happen for the behavior of that habits so that you don't have that mistake happen again. And that's what I want to do for you is whenever I do make a mistake in sharing insights or information with you, I do the best of my ability to make sure that I share the changes that have happened because of it and the new information that I've gathered, being able to share with you the why of my views that I'm changing them, what has caused me to want to make this shift if I've been saying something for a certain way and then I change, because change happens. And that's really important to remember for yourself, is that you may have certain beliefs right now where then over time, as you get introduced to new information and new behaviors, that those beliefs can change. And it can create such beautiful wisdom on the other side of that for yourself and for the people that you're interacting with. So thank you for being here. Let's dive into it. Today, what I want to talk about is, why do you keep saying yes to things that drain you? I want to break it down on an actual scenario that could be happening for you and get right into it, set the scene. You're going to help me out with this. I'm going to go through some questions so that we can paint this picture of what you could be experiencing right now. And then before that, I want to set the context of what could have been happening as you were growing up as a kid, getting into then starting your business. What could be that pattern that you've established for yourself? Because Tony Robbins talks about it a lot with patterns and how when it comes to being successful, it's really important for that first step of understanding the patterns. And that's what I want to help you to be able to do now with this specific situation that can be coming up for you. So from there, get into the scene and then get into some really practical steps, strategies that you can implement to be able to break that pattern. And then from there, start the process of changing that pattern. And I want to remind you, because I talk about it with burnout, where, burnout, it doesn't happen overnight. Your body's giving you these signals to let you know when you're moving towards hitting burnout. And it's for you to be able to listen to those signals and then determine the message from the signals to make the changes to your behaviors and to your habits. And that signal can come up in the form of pressure, tension, discomfort. And it relates to what you can experience with this. And those may be some sensations already that you notice whenever you say yes to something that you really don't want to say yes to, but there can be an underlying fear there that you can have that feeling that you're forced into having to say yes. And I want to help you to be able to break that and then start to make those changes. Okay, are you ready? Let's take another deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, because I'm sure you have one or two moments that are coming up for you where you said yes to something and you're just like, shit. Can't believe I said yes to that. I really don't want to. And it can be very draining for you right now. So let's take another deep inhale through the nose. And then release it on out. Oh, yeah. Whew. There you go. Okay. So what I want to let you know is that there's nothing wrong with you. This happens. And it can be a part of how you were conditioned growing up as a kid for the interactions that you were dealing with. And I relate to that in my own life. My dad, he was community service director at my high school. And so every Saturday, since I could remember as a kid, I would go out and do community service. And for me, it was really difficult growing up as a kid. I didn't look back and see, now I can look back and see how amazing it was to be able to give. And it created this pattern for me of wanting to give. And it became a default of saying yes to opportunities to support people that are in need and being able to have empathy for what they have going on in their life. But back then when I was a kid, I'd get really frustrated because at certain it would happen every Saturday. I'd be like, man, I really want my Saturdays. I want a Saturday to be able to hang out in the morning. But, in the morning, get up, go, if that would be planting flowers or trees in different parks, in the city of Baltimore, helping to build houses with Habitat for Humanity as one organization. And so what I grew up in for a pattern was the pattern of, if I'm, a team player, if I come in and I help, I have a sense of worth, of value to give. I get rewarded for that as something good, and that I'm reliable, as a team member. Even if I sacrifice a little bit of my own, joy in the moment, happiness in the moment, my own energy. And so I may be more exhausted and I may not really want to be there. But now looking back, I could see by the end of it, I had my friends that were hanging out with me for when we go and do these Saturday community service activities. And it was really fun. It was great. And so then I got the messaging of, well, okay, I could push, through something that I really don't want to do. I'll find some level of enjoyment on the other side of it. And so then I started to create that conditioning for myself and that habit that even if it's something at first I may not like, maybe I'll get some enjoyment on the other side of it. And that can be very deceiving as you get into building your business because you have a limited amount of time. And so what's important to realize is that there could be moments that you say yes, when in reality, it could serve you better to be able to say no to those opportunities. So you can either continue to focus on what it is that you're doing in building the business for those tasks, or to be able to say no, because it just is going to be so exhausting and draining for you that it'll be harder for you to put the energy towards the other aspects of the business that really matter for you to continue to grow the business and stay in the game for yourself and to give yourself time for your own quality of life as well. And so it's just interesting to notice for yourself growing up as a kid is what was the messaging that you were getting? Being able to ask yourself that. Were you getting rewarded for sacrificing your own well-being? That could be your health in order to show up for the group and support the group. Maybe it was not being able to sleep in as much as you would like, but you still showed up for your team. If you're playing a sport, you went to practice. That could be what's coming up for you for messaging. But it's just taking a little bit of time, and you can even jot this down in write out a few notes here of what's coming up for you for that conditioning that relates to why you keep saying yes, even to things that are draining for you. And then now I want to get into the underlying fears that can bubble up too as well. And where it starts is, again, these pressure balloons. So the situation, let's imagine that you have someone coming in and telling you about a new strategy that you could implement for your business that could help to grow in a certain area that you have felt stuck in. And what it could cause is for you to take energy and time away from what you've been working on in the business to go and try this completely new strategy. And what it could end up being is like a whole new business idea. And in building the business, I talk about this phase of the spaghetti phase. Like, you throw shit against the wall, see what sticks, see what's working. This can be with marketing for you. You could be currently right now focused on posting on social media, and it may not be working right now, but you've just started with the process. And then someone comes in with a whole different strategy to say, hey, maybe you should try in-person events and go in and speaking on stage and sharing your mission that way. Or you should get into more of the communities and connect that way with the communities. And so what can happen is then someone else can come in and say that as well. And you can say yes to that opportunity. And then you realize it's really something that you didn't want to do. And it's actually very draining for you. But now you feel stuck. And then another person comes in with a new idea, and then another, and then another. And you just feel like you're spreading yourself so thin with these different situations that you could say yes to. And what can happen is you can do it for a few different reasons. What happens is whenever someone comes in for either a favor, an opportunity for you to like come in and collaborate and say, hey, I got this great event, you should come over and speak to it. Or like, hey, there's like, it'd be really great if you come to this event. Really looking to have some people come in and connect, entrepreneurs to hang out. It could be like a networking event, could be an example. Or it could be just going to hang out, like a friend saying, hey, come on over. And like, it'd be awesome for you to go and play Ultimate Frisbee with me. But you don't want to do that because you want to be able to take the time to focus on the business over the weekend and continue to grow it. So you have all these different scenarios that could come up. That, or like going out and hanging out and drinking. I think about that for partying at night. You're focused on the business. For me, I resonate with this where, friends would be like, hey, why don't you come on? Especially early on when I was those first few years of building the business, people would be like, oh, come on out, hang out. Like you could take time away from the business, but you got to understand too what chapter you're in. You could be in the building phase right now. And so you cannot take, that this is the time to build. And so instead of going out for the weekend, getting drunk, having to deal with the hangovers, which I had plenty of those, it's being able to say no and then say, I want to focus on the business and continue to build and focus on what I'm working on right now. So you may have one or two situations that are coming up for you right now. What will happen is you'll get the request. Let's say we'll start with the friend idea for the weekend, because right now I'm recording this on a Friday. So a friend comes up and says, hey, this weekend, like, there's a really cool event. Like, you should come out, check it out. You don't want to go to the event. You're not feeling this desire to go. And what could happen then for sensations in the body that could experience is when they ask for you to come and join them for that request, you might feel a tightening in your chest or a tightening in your throat and a constricting. And so your body's moving inward. And what will happen is then you can feel pressure. And that is where you can imagine this pressure balloon, small pressure balloon, filling up in the body with stress of shit. I've gotten this request or someone's asking me of a favor to go hang out, and fuck, I really don't want to do this right now. I don't feel the urge. I really want to focus on the work. But then what could happen is because you've noticed that pressure balloon that fills up, you want to get rid of that discomfort. And so the urge could be to immediately say yes to it. Be like, all right, yeah, sure. And especially if you've been growing up with the conditioning of like saying yes, like I think back to my situations in life where like I wanted to make sure that I helped people that needed help. I wanted to feel seen, feel valued, feel like I was having an impact. And so immediately the default can be yes. And that is absolutely something that happens in my life is I go to default of yes. You can ask my life partner that. And I'll get into that later of like how I notice these sensations. But that could be what you could experience is it's imagining a pressure balloon filling up and that discomfort. And then for your nervous system, it wants to find a way to deal with that. And that is where by saying yes, you could feel immediate relief by saying yes. And then you could get these spidery tingling sensation on the back of the neck or the back of the head. And it's that, oh shit, I'm about to be like drained by going and doing this. And then you can get into these tornado thoughts that happen of the shame of like, shit, dude, why did you say yes to this? Like now what can happen is then you're dealing with a bigger pressure balloon that has been built over decades or years. And that bigger one could be this fear of the judgment of them saying like of the judgment of them when you say no. So what are they going to think of you? Are they going to be disappointed in you? Are they going to be angry, frustrated? Like you could have that fear of what other people are going to think and the judgment. And so then you go to the default of yes. That is where you can get into this idea of the people pleasing. The other one could be you wanted this relief to not feel guilty, right? You may have felt guilty if you said no. Like that could be, you don't want to feel guilty. You don't want to feel like you hurt someone. And so you have that bigger pressure balloon where it causes you to say yes. And then the other one that could be coming up for you is that you don't want to miss out either, right? There's that general urge of like, okay, I don't want to miss out on all these different opportunities. And especially in the times that we live in with a lot of uncertainty in the economy, if it's related to something in the business for a new opportunity or to go network or connect, even for these events where you could be going out late nights, hanging out, but they might be like, hey, well, you could connect with this person or that person. What can happen is then you have this fear of the missing out, the FOMO, and that scarcity where then you feel that obligation to have to say yes to, even though it's going to be draining. And then by the end of it, you're just like, this is exhausting. So you have to recognize that there's that smaller pressure balloon and then the bigger pressure balloon. And the smaller pressure balloon, it can be easy to go directly to that and try to pop. I always say like your focus is to pop as many of these balloons in your day because you can deal with hundreds of these pressure balloons that can fill up in the body with stress. And you have a certain amount of capacity to handle these balloons. Some are big that have been built over years and other ones are smaller ones that pop up throughout your day. And when you can pop these balloons, you increase your capacity to handle more growth for your body to handle the changes that can happen in your business and your quality of life so that you can sustain those changes and continue to move forward and continue to move to new levels of success for yourself. So what's really important to recognize is that noticing the difference between the small pressure balloon and the big pressure balloon, and then the actual sensations in your body. Because when you're constricting, that can be a sign for you of a stop sign where doesn't seem like it's going to be right for you. And it's connecting then to the gut, the intuition. And then if you feel more openness and expansiveness and like ease, then that can be a sign for you to say yes to it. But what you want to focus on is creating a break in the pattern, especially if you constantly you notice yourself saying yes. And this is where you can imagine I think back to when I used to go to my high school, I'd drive down this back road country, or what am I trying to say there? Man, it was a country road. That's the point of it. It's like it was a really one lane either side, and then tree covering on either side. There's like farms on one side, a whole forest on the other, and there'd be a lot of moments where deer would pop up and go across the road. And so how you can imagine creating a break in this is imagining something that comes in the front of the road. It could be a deer, or you notice something in the road and you pump the brakes. Like what would be your immediate reaction? Most probably would be to pump the brakes to give yourself more time, right? before you get closer to whatever it is that's in front of you, so that you can either, move around it, weave through it, or slow down and stop. And that's what you got to be able to do here in real time as you're dealing with the situation that's coming up for you. And so what you can do is actually take a moment to do a deep inhale and then exhale and pause for 3 seconds before responding back to the request. And you can even practice that right now. So you can do a deep inhale and then release 3 seconds. And what this will do is help to break the pattern so that you don't go down the default of saying yes. It gives you time and space to be able to determine if this truly is a yes, or do you feel constricted as a no, so that you can put in the rep to say no. And what will happen is when you first get started with putting the reps in and saying no, you will notice discomfort. There will be more intense pressure because you're dealing with this big pressure balloon of this underlying fear. The fear of judgment, fear of disappointing people, the fear of missing out, fear of the guilt that you could feel potentially that you don't want to feel. And so all of that. And later on, as you continue to put reps in, you'll be able to tap into more courage to then eventually make that big decision to not let that fear be in the driver's seat for your life. But in the immediate, for the right now, to deal with the small pressure balloon that can come up, it's being able to pause and give yourself that time to reflect. And then on the other side of this, what's really important to remember is that you are working against a lot of years that you have been conditioned and have built the habits of saying yes. So you will get off track and you will mess up and have those moments where you say yes when you really didn't want to say yes. And that can be draining. And so now you got to look at it of, is this just a short amount of time for a favor where you just do it, you get it done with, and then you learn from that mistake and let go of the mistake and make those necessary changes? Or is this going to be later on a bigger project where then what you can do is have that conversation to say, hey, and this is another moment of pausing, breathing, exhaling, and then actually being able to tell the person that you won't actually be able to make it. Because if you continue to move forward with that, what will happen, especially if it's a longer project, it's going to be draining for you and exhausting for you. And what can happen is then you start to build that resentment for the business, the resentment for what you're doing, and then it can cause you to stay stuck to the point where then it becomes even more difficult to continue to move forward in that momentum. And then eventually what can happen over time is you go towards a one-way ticket to hitting burnout, and then you get out of the game. And I really don't want that for you. I want you to be able to decide for yourself when you get out of the game, not feel like your body forces you to get out of the game. And so it's giving yourself grace, but not an excuse to give up when you get off track. And then when you do make that mistake that you actually wanted to say no, it's going as fast as you can to getting that lesson to be learned, and then changing and having that conversation to make the change to the pattern. And that still counts towards a rep of you shifting this pattern that you have. And I really didn't notice this until I was with my life partner. And for me, she'll ask me to go and say, hey, can you give me this from the fridge? Or can you help me out with getting something else? I'm trying to think of another example, but it's like usually like get like some water for her, or get her some food from the fridge, or help to clean up something. And what I noticed, there'd be moments where I'd be focused on something else that could be in the business, or actually a prime example would be like her wanting to connect or ask me a question when I'm in it right now for the business, and I'm dealing with a task midway. And usually what I would do is I stop and then I just focus on what she was asking. But over time, she noticed this, and she told me that I don't have to say yes all the time. And it was really hard for me at first to say no, of like, hey, right now, baby, can I get back to you? I'm focused on this task. Can we talk in a few minutes? It was really difficult. And you don't want to do it all the time, because then yeah, it's important to also have those connection moments, but being able to know when I really have something intense going on to be able to communicate that, and so that we can have that open communication and not feel like, we're it's something that we have to take personally. And I remembered when I was working on that, that's where I really noticed the constricting feelings and these pressure balloons and those different sensations that can come up. And so in the business, I don't know when it got to that point where I was able to start to say no to a lot of people, for opportunities and going out and hanging out. And what ended up happening is people started to talk to me less. There was less opportunities that came my way. It started to get really lonely in the business. And Chris Williamson talks about this really well, like the lonely chapter that can happen, where you haven't yet built up the skills sufficient enough to hang out with your new group of friends for that success, but you can't really relate to the current friends that you've had or what they're doing. And so you feel like you're in this middle, and it can be messy. I talk about it with that spaghetti phase of just like trying to figure it out. And there can be a really big urge to be accepted and to go back to your old patterns, your old ways, and have that burnout piece, I call it, drag you back to that way. But that just is exhausting and can lead to a one way ticket to hitting burnout. And so that it's realizing that could happen for you. And just to remember that it is natural for something like that to happen. It can be a sign that you're on the right path for moving forward. It does not have to be a stop sign for yourself. But as you put in more of these repetitions and continue to move forward and to grow, that can help to reinforce the benefit of doing this. When you can start to notice how focused you are on noticing changes in the business, noticing change for your own quality of life and how you feel. And when you're feeling more energized and feel like you're winning, it's a lot easier to show up and continue to build the momentum and continue to move forward, right? The other side of it, when you're feeling like shit, it feels a lot harder to show up and continue to move forward and put the reps in necessary. So to recap it for you, you're going to have these situations that come up where people are going to ask favors, ask for opportunities, and you will have this small pressure balloon that fills up in the body to get you to immediately say yes. And it's pausing, giving yourself a deep breath in, exhale, pause for 3 seconds, and then be able to connect back to, is this something that is open, ease, expansive, I get excited about, wanting to support, or am I constricted, tightened? Do I feel that intense pressure in my chest or my throat? Like, I really don't want to do this. And then from there, be able to say no when you want to say no, and realize that you're going to have this intense discomfort and pressure that can come up, especially at the beginning. And it can feel like a suction cup starting to get pulled from the table. It's just like ripping open, and it's just like, ugh, you just want to you want to say yes so you don't feel that. That is a moment where you gotta have faith in this, that you get more familiar with it. And I go back to, the more you understand, less fear grows. So the more you understand this and the experience of it and the sensations, the less fear will grow. And then it can become, over time, easier for you to work on that muscle. It is like focusing on a muscle, where it's then much easier to flex it. And then on the other side of that, remembering that there can be that lonely chapter that happens. Less opportunities come your way, but you're still focused on the key things that are going to help you to move forward. What matters for you in this business and for your own quality of life, for the people you care about, because you want to give. And that's such a beautiful gift to want to give to people. But you also want to make sure that you're channeling that, because there is a limited amount of time that we have and energy that in the capacity for the day and the decisions that we make. And so just remembering that you want to channel it to the best of your ability is really important. And you can tap into more all of that, of the energy, and create more time with clarity and giving yourself space for strategy. But you want to remember that it's important to work on this muscle of putting the reps in, so that you are realizing when you don't want to do something, that you are able to verbalize that and say that and communicate that. And if you haven't heard it yet today, I want to tell you, I believe in you. You have the capabilities to be able to listen to your body, to make the necessary changes to the behaviors and to your habits, and to move towards, again, making burnout extinct, and to change this pattern. You got this.